In 2002, Brock Lesnar came onto the scene in WWE. This was a time when the company was in flux, slowly the Attitude Era stars were leaving the company, and WWE was left with a mixture of stars from the late 90s and needed to build some new stars to supplant guys like Stone Cold and The Rock. Luckily for them, they found Brock Lesnar. Lesnar was an amazing athlete in college. He even won the NCAA Heavyweight Championship in amateur wrestling. This caught the eye of WWE and they were quick to sign him to developmental OVW. If you know anything about wrestling, you know how stacked Ohio Valley Wrestling was. The next generation of talent was all there. Everyone from John Cena to Randy Orton and Batista, and of course, Brock Lesnar. It wouldn't be long before he'd find himself on the main roster. For Lesnar, things came very quickly. He was pushed as a monster. Shortly thereafter, he won the 2002 King of the Ring, and just 3 months into his main roster career, he was challenging for the WWE Championship, which he won, beating The Rock and knocking down legend after legend. He even won the Royal Rumble the following year. Lesnar was fast-tracked into the main event scene and beat some of the greats in the company. There was just this badass aura to the guy, and you feared for the other guy's life when they were in the ring with Brock Lesnar. Everything was coming so quickly to Lesnar, but he wasn't happy with WWE. He didn't want to log the long miles, and he didn't feel like throwing his body around, so he left. He went to go play football for a bit before injuries caught up to him. Then he went to New Japan and competed there at New Japan Pro Wrestling. After that, he turned his eye to MMA, and like everything else he's done, he succeeded there. He was signed to the UFC where he beat Randy Couture to win the UFC World Heavyweight Championship. This was the same dude who came from the place where they script their fights, and he proved everyone wrong. The guy was a machine and became the biggest draw in the company because of where he had come from and what he could do. Medical conditions would end his MMA career, but he came back to where it all started, and that's where we pick things up. Brock Lesnar is one of the most polarizing figures of all time. When people talk about him, oftentimes it's about him wanting to work a small schedule or having the same matches on repeat. But there is a brilliance to Brock Lesnar that a lot of people turn a blind eye to. I've had enough of the unnecessary Brock Lesnar slander. People don't realize how good he truly is and how lucky they are to see him every now and then. Here I present you the unappreciated genius of Brock Lesnar. One of the things that sets Brock Lesnar apart is his looks. If you were to ask someone off the street what a wrestler should look like, they would draw you something like Brock Lesnar. A big, muscular machine that looks like he should be protecting the President of the United States rather than performing in a ring. In today's day and age, there are so many wrestlers who just look like gas station employees, but Brock Lesnar is not in that company. When people see Brock Lesnar in a street or I don't know, at a park, they're like, I don't want to screw with this guy. The same is when you plaster him across all your branding. He looks legitimate, and for a company that people know is scripted, this really helps. The physique only adds a mysterious element to people who may be new to wrestling. When they see the guy on promotional materials, people are like, damn, I wonder what that Hulk looking dude can do in the ring. You put Adam Cole on a poster, sure, us hardcores will know who he is, but he just doesn't look like a dude who's throwing around people in the ring. Speaking of throwing around people in a ring, that's my second point, is Lesnar's matches, which are a work of art. In today's wrestling world, we're so used to these work rate based indie matches with Canadian destroyers and 40,000 kickouts, but Brock Lesnar matches are a different beast. His matches feel real. His matches feel like it's a wrestler versus the final boss. Everything from the way he sells to Brock Lesnar's moves and mannerisms. Having Brock have competed in the UFC only makes it feel that much bigger. It's simply a MMA fighter versus a wrestler. Brock's matches feel like a fight. It's dangerous when Brock's in the ring. You don't know what he's gonna do. He's a psychopath, and it's brilliant. People complain about the structure of his matches being the same, but what do you expect? Do you expect him to be selling for half the match, fly off the top rope, and do dives through the ropes? Heck, if anything, Brock Lesnar's matches following the same pattern make it more intriguing. You just never know what you're gonna get. Either you'll get Brock just killing a guy, or you could get the underdog overcoming the final boss. Most of his opponents don't even look like they should be in the same ring with him. When I was at SummerSlam 2019, the main event was Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins. You had an unstoppable force versus the underdog. All the big moments in that match were that much more memorable because of who he was facing. Every time Rollins would land on his feet off a suplex, or every time he'd hit a big move, it would be that much more impactful. Anytime someone does beat Brock Lesnar, it feels huge because it's the David versus Goliath story. He dominates for most of his matches, which makes it feel legit. He feels like a final boss who is hard to topple. When the offense comes, it only gets the crowd more excited. Look at Brock's matches with Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, and even the Royal Rumble match from 2020. When the opponent is having a little bit of a flurry in between, it's that flurry in between that makes it feel real. A dude like Brock Lesnar shouldn't spend the match selling and fighting from behind. It's just not believable. He's had classics in the past with guys like Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero, but at his age, he just doesn't need to have those anymore. He's a legit fighter whose fights feel huge. Beating Brock Lesnar isn't an easy feat, and I know what you're thinking. Well, yeah, of course he's hard to beat. He never shows up. That's what makes it special. When you see someone only come out for a select number of matches, the hype, the build, and the overall feel for that match is so much bigger. When Brock is done chucking cows on his farm or whatever he does, and he makes his way to WWE, there's an excitement in the air. First of all, because you haven't seen him in a while, and secondly, you don't know how the match is gonna go. The match could be Brock absolutely dominating like he did to John Cena at SummerSlam, or the match could be an all-time classic like his triple threat match in 2015 with Rollins and Cena. Less is more, and some fans really struggle to understand that. He is an attraction wrestler. People from the outside world care when he's in the ring. When he's in the ring, let me tell you, his wrestling ability is amazing. It's amazing, you cannot dispute it. When he is motivated to compete, he can go and you will be delivered a classic. On the other hand, if you get Brock on a bad day, you get Brock versus Ricochet. When someone does beat him, it just feels that much more bigger. No, he's not going to be doing super kicks and Canadian destroyers. That's not his style. His style is rough, it's dominant and physical. It's amazing. Next time you watch a Brock Lesnar match, I want you to sit back and think to yourself, who else has this dangerous and vicious feeling around him when they're in the ring? Who else is that legitimate? Brock's not a guy who's been particularly strong at cutting promos either, but he has Heyman for that. Heyman can sell you on anything, and then the times where Brock does speak, it feels huge because the guy just doesn't have a filter. He'll say whatever he wants to whomever he pleases. Anytime he picks up the mic, it's always cool to see what he has to say. Brock Lesnar is actually one of the greatest of all time, and his name doesn't get mentioned in that conversation enough, and I don't know why that is. The rise of Brock Lesnar is something we may never see again. In 2 years, he ran roughshod in WWE. Then he went and dominated in other companies, and then he came back to where he started. Sure, he didn't have the greatest start when he came back, but this guy achieved everything there is to achieve. I feel like Brock Lesnar just does not get the recognition he deserves. This guy is an all-time great, and his name is consistently slandered. For younger kids who may watch this video and think to themselves that I'm full of it, when you're older, you're gonna realize you witnessed the back end of one of the greatest careers of all time. You'll be lucky to see another star who possesses the aura, look, and decades of excellence as Brock Lesnar does. The path he's gone in his life, his career, his dominance, everything is just something special that no other competitor, and I mean no other competitor in WWE has. So what do you guys think? What's up with this IWC crap that consistently just berate the guy? I see it time and time again. When he's back, people are like, okay, go away. And then when he's gone, people act like they missed the guy. Why can't you make up your mind? It's true that wrestling fans will never be satisfied, even by one of the biggest draws in professional wrestling. Brock Lesnar is truly a once-in-a-lifetime competitor, and no one else compares.